Hi, guys, and welcome to Reality with Tea. Today I'm sipping on some honey chamomile lemon tea by Celestial Seasonings. Now, this is a tea that I love to put me to sleep. It's sweetened with honey and lemon. So, happy tea to you, and I hope you have a great day. I am sorry that it took me so long to get back to you all. I went on a vacation and we had no Wi-Fi because we were out in the boondocks. So now that I'm back, you get ready because I have The Other Way, I have 90 Day Fiance, Happily Ever After, and I have Married at First Sight coming to you. Okay? So let's get started because I'm going to be covering last week for the other one. Okay? So this week we start off with Asuelu and Lonnie. Let's start off with them, okay? So Lonnie and Asuelu start off because they're headed to Asuelu's parents, well, to see his mom and his sister who live in Washington. And remember last week they were up there talking about, we're waiting for you to bring us $1,000, what have you, right? So Lonnie's, her solution to this is let's bring them gifts instead of giving them cash because we don't have cash, and honestly they just need to be thankful for whatever it is we bring them, right? So they start off in a Samoan store, and he's like picking up, corned beef, whatever it is that they eat. This place seems really expensive for no reason. Like they have $40 t-shirts, and he's trying to pick all this stuff, and Lonnie's just kind of asking him, like, you know, we don't. She's saying to him, we don't have this money. Where do you think it's coming from? We have bills, we have this and that, and she actually has to like break down to him, like, well, why don't we give my family money then, and we give your family money, and then who's going to pay the bills, and where is it coming from? And he's like, she's like, well, why don't we just give them $50? He's like, 50 isn't enough. I want them to be close to me. And then it's kind of sad because it's like you shouldn't have to pay your family to have a close relationship with them. And that's what it seems like he's doing. That's what she's trying to tell him. And he's not getting it. He's just saying he wants to be close to his family, so he has to give them money. Right. So then she's asking him, like, well, where's this money coming from? And, he just answers in a very immature way. God will make a way. And it's like, okay, but we need to, if we need to feed our kids and this is the money that we have right now, we need to be smart about just giving it away for no reason, right? So they show the trip, they board the plane, they rent a car, they're driving to the hotel they're gonna stay at. And naturally Asuelo wants to see his mom and sister immediately. Now, he has the biggest attitude, right? Because Lonnie is saying to him, where the kids are done for the day, we're going to the hotel, we'll see them in the morning. And I sympathize with her. I have been there. My partner, his family lives in a different state as well. And we have been through the traveling for the whole day with an infant, toddler, what have you. And it is absolutely awful. I will tell you that it's awful, right? Because you have the plane delays. Like I said before, I don't like traveling. Then traveling with the kids is even more. So they have very young kids. So you're taking these kids out of the environment that they're used to. You have them on an airplane. You're probably nursing them the whole flight. It's not easy on us moms, okay? You're nursing them the whole flight. You're trying to keep them quiet. You're embarrassed because they're screaming. Now you have them in a car. You're strapping them in and out of everything, which they hate. They're not eating on schedule. Kids thrive on routine. You've completely obliterated their routine for the day. So by the end of the night, and especially if their bedtime is like at 7 and now you're arriving at 11 o'clock p.m., they are done. And a tired baby is the worst thing in the world, right? So the kids are just cranky. So he's ready to go to see his mom. He's like disappointed. He starts cursing again because that's how he deals with any type of disappointment that he has. Like, oh, this is effing annoying, the whole thing. But whatever, I get it. What we have done before is I've gone to the place we're staying and I stayed with the kids and then just allow him to go see his mother and sister that night. We'll see them in the morning. That's easy. She's a mom. She knows. Listen, the kids are going to bed. They'll see you in the morning. Go hang out with your family. That's not a problem. We've done that. I'm like, go ahead, go chill out with your mom, but I'm gonna get the kids to bed and we'll see them in the morning. Whatever, I didn't fault her for that. It is what it is. When it comes down to it, and especially kids that young, I'm gonna be the one dealing with the crankiness, and you hand them off to the family member who the kid doesn't know, and they're like, well, what's wrong with the baby? Why are they so cranky? Da, da, da. Well, they've been traveling all day and they're completely over this, okay, and they don't know you, so it's not easy, okay. But whatever, they're fine. They're gonna go see the family, I guess, next week, and we'll see how that whole interaction goes when he doesn't come up with $1,000. Okay. moving on to Paul and Karini. So Paul he starts out in a pet store, right? He calls his mother over to meet her in a pet store. And basically, for some reason, he has these two huge German Shepherds that he's been boarding when he was in Brazil. So now he's home with them and has to take care of Karini, the son, and the two German Shepherds, which makes no sense to me, right? Whatever. He meets with mom. Basically, he can't pay for the pet food. So he's asking his mother to pay for the pet food. And the mother already knows his game as soon as she gets there. You know, she's like, do you need a little bit of help from me? And then he finally says, yeah, I'm going to need a little bit of help because he can't pay for the for the pet food. Okay, so but mom, I love his mother. She's not giving in to him. She's not giving him anything. She basically is telling him this made no sense. You know, you have these people over here, your wife and your son. You had no job. You had nothing set up. That has nothing to do with me. You need to figure it out. And she's making him figure it out on his own, right? So mom is very straightforward. She says to him at one point, I wouldn't want to be with a deadbeat. And a friend of mine was talking to me about it. And she's like, damn, that was a little bit harsh. And I'm thinking, to me, Paul needs somebody. The mother knows him well and knows that he really only understands when you speak to him in a concrete fashion. You need to not beat around the bush. You don't need to mince your words for him. For him to understand what is happening, she needs to be straightforward and blunt with him. And like she said, you know, basically you're a deadbeat. And if you notice, he didn't really react to it. Like, he didn't say, oh my goodness, I can't believe you called me that. It's almost like her saying that kind of clicked to him. Like, yeah, I guess I am. But it's almost like if she had said, oh, well, you know, a woman doesn't, whatever she would need to do to like make it sound pretty, he would not have really understood it. Like, she needed him to understand this is how it looks. Like, this is pretty bad. You're in a bad situation. So I like her. I think she knows how to deal with her son. She seems supportive as she can or wants to be, but at the same time, it's like at this point you have to grow up. You have decided to take on all these extra responsibilities, so you go ahead and do it. You know, I'll be here. I'll be around. I want to get to know my grandson, but other than that, you got to take care of this mess you made yourself. And he'll never learn until he has to dig himself out from the bottom, right? So that's what it is. But Paul ends up saying to her, you know, we started out okay, but Karini's very homesick. Karini was very close with her family. She was living at home before Paul came and scooped her up. So, you know, even the mother says, well, of course she's homesick. Think about how you were living down there. You don't know the language. You can't do anything. You're stuck with a baby. And then she know her son is crazy as hell. So it's like she's stuck with you. So of course she's homesick. You have nobody, you have no friends. You have nobody to go to and you're just here. I think that when Americans go to other countries and when the foreigners come over here, they don't think about the culture shock that they are going to have in store for them when they get there, and also the loneliness that comes with being in a completely different country, not knowing the language well, and also not having anybody that you can talk to but the person that you're in a relationship with. So, I mean, I'm wishing Karini well. I'm wishing Paul well. We'll see how this ends up. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Andrei and Libby. So we start off the episode with him gaslighting her from the jump. He starts off talking about, well, are you sober from last night? And she's like, well, I was sober from last night. It was you who was drunk acting a damn fool, right? So he talks about canceling the wedding, and he's like, I'm not going to let her cancel the wedding. She won't disappoint me like that. So it's almost like she doesn't even have a choice in this. We're going to get married again because my feelings are more important than hers, and I can't deal with being disappointed because I'm going to act like a damn fool. So we are going to have this wedding, whether she wants it or not, right? But Libby has a good point. She's like, we're already married, whatever. If it's going to cause all these issues between you and my family, and I'm going to be in the middle, I don't even want to get married because I actually want it to be a good experience. Like, I actually want to have fun doing it. I want to enjoy it. I don't want it to have to be all this negativity surrounding the wedding. So I understand, you know, but he says, you know, you need to make a choice, whatever. She says she doesn't like being in the middle. He starts blaming her, you know, like, well, why did you invite your brother and your dad? You know, they shouldn't have come if they were going to act like this. And, you know, it's really like a toxic relationship. We already know that, but it's also just, there's so much tit for tat and back and forth and, you know, blaming her. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know what he really wants from her. But then as we see them at the next dinner, I can see why they have so many issues, because Libby does not stand in the middle. between her husband and her dad and her brother. And even her brother and dad were like, say something. And then Andrei's like, say something. And she's just sitting there like, I don't want to be in between you guys. But you are in the middle because you brought him into the family. So you kind of have to be there to diffuse the situation. But we'll get to that. Okay. So, then Andrei starts talking about, tell your family. Your family thinks that I'm a deadbeat, basically. They think that I'm choosing not to work. And apparently there was a conversation between Andrei and Libby where she said it was okay for him to stay home with the baby while she worked. Now, I don't understand this. And so now she's like, well, I kind of want you to work. I changed my mind. That was in the beginning. But Andrei never worked. When he first got here, he refused to work. Like, as soon as he got his papers and was able to work, he didn't want to work because he didn't make money fast enough. So I don't know why she's saying it as if you're staying home with the baby. The baby came about 2 years after their marriage. So it has nothing, he wasn't working from the beginning. And then for her to have that conversation with him wasn't smart because he's going to take that one conversation, even if it was a half of a conversation, and run with it. Remember, you said you want me home. You said, so now we can't just switch. Now you're just going to send me out into the workforce and then you're going to stay home. We can't just switch. What happened to both of you guys working and getting a caretaker? I don't know what Libby's mom is doing, but she has all these siblings. Her siblings, apparently their husbands are so rich, they probably have nannies. They wouldn't mind taking on one more kid. Like, they can get childcare. I don't understand what's the problem. Like, I don't know. It's just a really weird situation between them two. Let's see. So then they get to a dinner with Andrei's friends, with Libby's dad and brother. And so everybody's talking, they tell him to eat like whatever food that the brother and the dad didn't like. They were like, oh, okay. And they had to like take a shot of vodka. They were having a good time. Then they go back to the subject of Andrei. And at this point, I do agree that they are picking with him and they are harping on a situation. He has already said several times he doesn't want to talk about why he's been to Ireland. Of course, we want to know what sent you to Ireland. You know what I mean? What is the big secret? Why did you leave a good or whatever type of job and go to a whole different country and then end up in the United States? So, the brother and the dad are saying, did you go to Ireland to make it easier for you to come to the States? You only knew Libby for 3 months before you guys got, before you came over. Was this a plan? Was this, and he's not answering. And he gets very upset because it's not a good feeling to be anywhere, especially when you're amongst your friends and then you're at a table with all these people and everybody's looking at you and questioning you and, well, why did you do this? And especially if you're hiding something, it really puts you on a spot. So I can understand why he feels bullied and kind of provoked. And he keeps saying, you guys are provoking me. And then at one point he says, all right, well, let's talk about it outside. So the brother and Andrei stand up as if they're going to fight, but they end up just kind of like maybe pushing each other's little, pushing the shoulder here, pushing the shoulder there. It wasn't a real fight at all. It was whack. Even though my money would be on Andrei, I think he could take on anybody at that table. But, Libby, they were both, everybody's yelling at Libby, say something to your man, say something to your husband, to your dad and brother. And she's just like, I don't want to be in the middle. I shouldn't have to say anything. And she kind of gets in between and says, you're not going to fight. So I guess we'll see next week if this actually ends up being a real fight or what happens. Okay, we're going to move on. See, these episodes are long, but I'm going to take us through very quickly, okay? Now we have Jess and Colt, right? So we start off the episode with Debbie and Colt going to Jess's family to say goodbye because I guess they're headed to another town in Brazil or another city. So the family is very nice. They give gifts despite the issues that they had at the dinner table. They said, that's just tradition. If you come to our country, we'll give you gifts. Debbie was very surprised but happy with, saying goodbye to the family, and she wishes them well. At this time, Colt asked for Jess's dad's hand, asked Jess' dad for her hand in marriage, and the father just very quickly says, yes, you can. You treat her well, of course you can marry her. But then when they get in the car, he lies about it. He says, oh, no, I was just talking to him about football, and Debbie's kind of like, well, I hope he didn't ask for her hand in marriage because she says, I'm going to do anything I can to sabotage it because I don't like Jess and I don't trust her and I think she's using him and I'm going to sabotage it. So Debbie is, she's extra. She doesn't want to lose her son. Her son is basically her husband at this point. She's so attached to him. But also she doesn't want him to go through the same thing that they're still coming out of with Larissa. Like, this was only 6 months ago, and she can see the same pattern of behavior, but Colt isn't listening. Like she says, Colt is in love, so he doesn't see any of these things. So they go on to Sao Paulo, And Deb decides, with her provocative self, to call Vanessa to see how the cats are doing. And she updates Vanessa on everything that happened down there. Oh, and Jess was disrespectful. And I think he asked for her hand in marriage and the whole thing, right? So all of a sudden Colt and Jess walk in. I think they're headed out for a night on a town, and they invite Deb for whatever reason. And at first she says yes, and she says, "Oh, Colt, let me show you a video of the cats." And Vanessa sent them to me. As soon as she says Vanessa, Jess goes off. She's like, "Wait a minute, I thought she wasn't talking to her. I don't trust her. I thought she told me it was over, blah, blah, blah." She already had an issue with Vanessa. So Deb did that on purpose. And she's kind of just looking like, yeah, I think the producers asked her, like, "Did you do that on purpose?" Something. She's kind of like, yeah. So she did it on purpose. So now next week we're going to see Jess going off on Colt about the whole Vanessa situation. Because when it comes down to it, Deb wants Colt to end up with Vanessa, if anybody. Okay, now we have Sinjin and Tanya. We see them on the way to JFK Airport. They're going to JFK from Connecticut. Well, they're going to stay in a hotel, then head to JFK to fly off to South Africa the following day because Sinjin's brother is in ICU with a blood clot, so he wants to be around his family at this time. So in the car on the way to New York City, here comes Tanya starting. "I know you can't wait to start drinking at 8 a.m. And he's like, "We don't drink at 8 a.m. in South Africa." She's like, "Well, 10 a.m. Yes, you do." And they start an argument about her controlling him. They're arguing, and she says she feels like, "Your actions do affect me, and you don't realize that." And he feels like, "You're just trying to control every little thing I do." Basically, you don't even have to say anything. You know what I mean? You're bringing this stuff up, and you're just starting with me. And she says, like, she doesn't want him to party because he doesn't know his limits. So we haven't seen Sinjin really party. We don't know how. If maybe he does go off the deep end. Maybe he's completely his actions are just barbaric, and he doesn't know how to control himself. We don't know if he's throwing glasses, starting bar fights, whatever it is. Maybe she knows that, but at this time it just seems like she's just trying to control him, and he just feels like she's nitpicking with him. Okay, so at the end he just says, "Leave me alone, don't nag me." He says that she feels like she knows better than me. Basically, like, she knows more than me, she knows better than me, so she can tell me what to do, and feels like she has to tell me what to do. And I do agree with that. And their relationship as well is it's a toxic relationship because they hit below the belt. They don't say nice things to each other. He says that. He says, "We get to the point where we want to say mean things to each other. They don't fight fair." She's very controlling. She nitpicks at him. He's trying to be a free spirit. I mean, she's a free spirit in her own way as well, but he just kind of wants to be allowed to do his thing, and she kind of wants to put barriers on it. So, they're already flying back to go see his family, and it's not on a good note. In the morning, they wake up and he's ready to go. He's so excited, and he's like, "Let's go to the airport," and so she's like drinking her coffee, slipping real slow. She's trying to prolong, just leaving the hotel, and he's kind of looking at her, and it's just the most awkwardest moment, because I'm sure the producers are like, "Well, what is she doing?" And she's just like, "Oh, I gotta finish my coffee. Oh, this coffee." So, and he's like, "Let's go. Like, I'm ready. Why are you stalling us getting to the airport?" And then you see there's pretty much she trying to keep him away from his family. She's trying to keep him away from South Africa because she feels like he's going to have too much of a good time and not want to come back. And she did say something about him, enjoying himself so much that he might not want to come back. Now, number one, that is selfish as hell, because you should want him to be around his family and have a good time, and just be in his element, because right in Connecticut he's having a horrible time. He's depressed. He's very just unhappy with being there and being with her. It seems like both of them are very unhappy being in this relationship, but at least as a wife, he's going to see his family. You would think that she would want him to have a good time, but she doesn't, because she thinks that she's not going to be able to bring her man back to America. So when they get there, they arrive, and Sinjin's very happy, and they kind of talk to mom and sister, and both mom and sister are kind of skeptical about the relationship. They're like, basically, I think that he says, she makes me happy, but she also makes me sad and angry at different times. And the mom and sister can see that they're not on the best terms. She's like, they kind of feel like Sinjin changed a bit, and that maybe Tanya isn't the best for him. I think mom even said that they got married very quickly, and I don't think they expected it. Basically they want Sinjin home, but I think they also sense that he is unhappy. So we'll see where this goes from here. Okay, now we have Larissa. Okay. So we ended last episode with her going through his phone and talking to someone who was dating him when they were broken up. So now Larissa confronts Eric, and they're going back and forth. And Eric is the biggest, manipulator. He's gaslighting her. She's like, "I went through your phone. I talked to this girl. She tells me you're saying this about me." And he's like, "Well, you need to apologize for even going through my phone, and you need to say sorry, and this and that." And so the whole situation is completely toxic. I don't understand the depth of Eric's crazy. Because obviously there's something there, because all of her friends hate him and they're so shocked that they're back together, and being that she's only been there 2 days and this whole thing blew up so quickly, so we don't even know the extent of it. But we know Larissa doesn't have, she doesn't have all her marbles. Her elevator does not go to the top floor. And Eric, we can see there's something going on with him, but we don't have the extent of it because he just hasn't been on camera that much. So this whole situation has blown up, and it gets to the point where now Larissa's kind of like, "Well, are you going to call the cops?" I think she was saying, "This is my phone." I guess she lent him the phone for the 6 months they were, and basically she gave him a phone. Then they were broken up, so he still had the phone. But I guess she's saying it's my phone, so I can do what I want with it. And he's like, "I've had the phone, So then she's like, "Well, are you going to call the cops?" So apparently, so now everybody in Larissa cult, everybody, the situation, they use the police out there as a weapon. You know what I mean? And to me, why would you be so willing to call the cops or even provoke him to call the cops when you're trying not to be deported? You already have all these domestic violence cases. So, this is just a hot mess. So I don't. At some point, she says something about her face being $10,000. I guess the work that she's had done to her face, and I don't understand it. I don't know. We see her with no makeup. We see her looking a mess. And I'm trying to figure out where $10,000 went, but she definitely had some stuff done, definitely the lips and everything, and that's her business. But again, you have 2 kids in another country that you're not raising, and you spend $10,000 in America on just plastic surgery. Okay, think about that. Okay. At one point, Eric is saying to her, "You're digging up the dead, because she calls somebody in his past. You think you're Dolly Parton because you're walking around in a robe." I mean, this conversation is it's just so bizarre and out there. You kind of feel like, are these 2 people on the same planet? Like, what kind of an argument is this? It was so weird. But basically, he takes no accountability for anything that he said or done. And, he's just trying to focus on, like, "Well, why are you back with me?" type of a thing. Larissa, after all this, goes over to Carmen again, and Carmen says, "I told you so. I knew this was going to happen. I actually didn't know it was going to happen this soon, but I knew Eric was crazy as hell, and I knew you would be back and telling me that he did something crazy as hell." So, and that's not good to hear from a friend, but at the same time, at some point, you have to listen to somebody, right? And then David calls her while she's with Carmen, I believe, and says, like, he threatens to call the cops, something about threatening to call the cops, and like, why would you even threaten to call the cops when you could be deported? I don't even know how David is involved. This whole situation is very high school and immature. So we're done with that. Okay. Lastly, we're going to talk about Angie and Mike. Angie starts off telling Mike about the biopsy that she had. She had a biopsy of her uterus, I believe, the uterine lining, to see if she has any precancerous or cancerous cells. And she relates it to, if I have cancer, that's more important, my health, than me actually toting this baby for you. And Michael says, I don't need time to think about this, because basically that's my goal in life. I don't want to, I want to marry you. I love you, but at the same time, I want kids. Okay. And he says, give me time to think about it. You're just throwing this on me. And she's very upset. "So are you saying that if I can't have kids, we can't get married?" She's kind of back and forth between saying that and also saying, "Well, I thought you loved me and you should be able to love me whether I can bear children or not." At the same time, you are 54 dealing with a 30-year-old. He wants kids. Same thing with Ed and the girl was she in Thailand? They're telling you up front that they want kids. You're over that hump. You have grandkids, Angie. Allow this man to go on and live his life, find somebody he can have kids with, if that's his life dream, and just leave it at that. You know what I mean? I think it's gonna be a hard road. And so, at some point Michael says, "All right, let's not even talk about it. Let's see what the doctor has to say." So the doctor FaceTimes them and basically tells her that she's healthy. At the same time, your liver's great, this is great, everything is great. Angie's just puffing on this cigarette, acting like that's not gonna give her cancer and take her out of here. probably faster than the uterine cancer would. But she's just, oh, you know, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy. But the doctor also says you even trying to have a baby at this age is a health risk for you. You know, it's just going to make your pressure go up. It's going to do this to your blood. It's going to do this, this, and this. And these are things, this is going to probably affect your health, you know, more than actually bringing a baby. This is something you really have to think about, because you can actually, in the worst case, you know, you can die from trying to do this to your body. Your body is just not there yet. Your body, I mean, you know, and Angie doesn't want to hear it, but that's the truth. So, you know, she says, she tells her all the risks, and then they talk about it again. And Angie, you know, and again, and she kind of cussed the doctor off. And again, Angie is saying to him, you know, I thought you loved me. And he's like, you know, I want to have kids. I don't want you to die either. And then she starts, you know, yelling, you know, her usual, are you just going to be, you want to be married to me? And if not, you know, you're just going to be an African man in your country. And that was such a weird statement, because I'm like, well, he is an African man in his country. So, but it's also like she's blackmailing him. Like, you cannot come to America unless you marry me. So basically you give up your life dream. But it's just weird that she would say that about herself, because I would hope that she would want him to, you know, want to be married to her. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I got to figure out that statement. But it's almost like, I kind of know what you're trying to marry me for, and she doesn't care. I just want you to come because you know, you'll be my property, and she's holding that over his head. So we'll see how that ends up.